Iran launched new strikes against U.S. bases across the Middle East. That's where we're starting the 7 from the Washington Post. I'm Hannah Jewell. It's Thursday, June 11th. Let's get you caught up with today's 7 stories. A ceasefire is technically still in effect between the U.S. and Iran. But the past few days have seen an escalation in attacks by both countries, which has threatened to upend negotiations to permanently end the war. Yesterday, the U.S. military said it had launched strikes on multiple targets in Iran. Iranian news outlets said explosions could be heard in several southern cities. It followed a warning from President Donald Trump that Iran would have to pay the price after it responded to earlier U.S. strikes. On social media yesterday morning, Trump said that Iran had taken too long to negotiate a deal. Then, in the Oval Office, he blamed previous presidents for that.
So we'll see what happens. But we hit them hard yesterday, and we're going to hit them again hard today, in case you miss it, in case you don't turn on your television set. And we'll see what happens with the deal. We were really close to a deal, but they keep tapping us along. They keep playing us for suckers because, you know what? They dealt with some very stupid presidents. I have to say that. I'm embarrassed to say. Some very stupid people were sitting here. Yeah.
There have been no known direct talks between the two sides since April 11th. Negotiations have continued, though, with both sides passing messages back and forth through intermediaries. This morning, Iran launched 2 waves of attacks against U.S. bases in 3 countries across the Middle East. Inflation is the highest it's been in 3 years. That's number 2. Yesterday, the Labor Department released its Consumer Price Index Report, or CPI. Each month, the report tracks the average change in prices paid by consumers for a wide range of products. The latest report showed that prices rose at a 4.2% annual pace in the year ending in May. Higher energy prices accounted for much of the monthly gain. Gas prices rose 7% in May, continuing a spike caused by the Iran war. The surge in inflation comes at a challenging moment for Trump, who made lowering the cost of living a central promise during his campaign. White House officials have sought to minimize the damage, arguing that the inflation surge is a temporary disruption tied to the war. But as the conflict with Iran heats up with no resolution in sight, energy prices seem likely to continue climbing. Number 3. President Trump saw an unusually high number of medical specialists as part of his latest checkup. For George H.W. Bush's first medical checkup as president in 1989, White House officials said he was seen by 5 specialists. His son, George W. Bush, was seen by 12 in his first presidential checkup a dozen years later. Trump appears to have set a new bar. 22 medical specialists assessed him as part of his latest checkup. That's according to a medical report recently released by the White House. That figure is nearly double the number of specialists who assessed Trump for his past medical checkups as president. The White House said the number was necessary to perform a complete and preventive evaluation of Trump. Sean Barbarella, the president's physician, said he was found to be in excellent health. But it has prompted questions from outside physicians who say they were already skeptical of the White House's disclosures about Trump's health. The president turns 80 years old this weekend. Number 4 is a Post exclusive. Zohran Mamdani was set to meet with the leader of Colombia until the Trump administration stepped in. New York City's mayor and Colombian president Gustavo Petro are both Democratic socialists. They have also both butted heads with President Trump. Petro has accused the White House of meddling in his country's elections. And last year, the U.S. imposed visa restrictions against him after he criticized U.S. support of Israel's war in Gaza and said U.S. soldiers should disobey presidential orders to kill. The Mamdani-Petro meeting this week was intended to discuss democracy in the Americas. But the Colombian government quietly called it off after State Department officials made clear that they thought it was unacceptable. Colombian officials took that as a threat that Petro would be arrested if he proceeded. Analysts described the administration's intervention to prevent the meeting as extraordinary. Number 5. A new study split Americans into 9 political groups. Every 5 years or so since 1987, the Pew Research Center has conducted a poll. The idea is to see how Americans would cluster around ideas if they weren't grouped into 2 political parties. 10,000 Americans were polled for the latest study, and the results revealed that the country is very polarized, with divisions between and within the left and the right. The left is split into 4 groups, including loyal liberals and leftward progressives. They're divided on issues like crime and transgender rights. On the right, researchers also identified 4 groups, including faith-first conservatives and the no apologies right. These groups are split over issues like abortion and gun rights. And in between, 9% of those polled fit into a group researchers called the tuned-out middle. If you want to find out which of the 9 groups you belong to, there's a quiz for that. Follow the link in today's 7 newsletter to find it. Certain habits in midlife could make or break your brain health long-term. That's number 6. Researchers increasingly believe that your 40s, 50s, and 60s may represent a critical window for protecting cognitive health later in life. Many now think the biological process that leads to dementia begins 15 to 20 years before the first memory problems emerge. That means the ordinary habits of middle age may matter far more than scientists once realized, and cognitive decline may not be inevitable. One study found the importance of getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, at least 150 minutes of aerobic activity a week, and fewer than 8 sedentary hours a day. Another study showed that people who remained physically active during midlife had a 40 to 45% lower risk of dementia later in life. It's also important to keep challenging your brain. Learning a language, mastering an instrument, or taking up an unfamiliar hobby may help build your brain's resilience over decades. So maybe make today the day you learn to play the oboe. And at number 7, we wrote the 43 definitive rules for watching the World Cup. I am so excited for the World Cup to kick off tonight, though watching the first game will, in my time zone, require my husband to execute a near-perfect toddler bedtime routine. Wish us luck. But whether or not I get to watch it, the World Cup is a wonderful thing. For nearly 6 weeks, 48 nations will compete across the US, Mexico, and Canada in the biggest sporting event ever staged. Teams have been arriving over the past few weeks, and fans have been ready to greet them. Here are the 2022 World Cup champions Argentina arriving in Kansas City, Missouri earlier this month. But every global spectacle needs a code. So our reporters wrote one. Here are some of our official rules. Yes, you can probably wear your team's kit to the office. Yes, you can drink a pint before midday. And sure, you may as well hug a stranger after a goal. And if your team is out of the mix, go ahead and pick a random country. For the rest of our rules, which, yes, can absolutely be broken, follow the link in today's 7 newsletter. All right, you're all caught up. If you are liking the show, we always appreciate it if you leave us a lovely rating or review wherever you are listening. You guys really rose to the challenge when I not so subtly asked for a positive review last week. Bonus points to those of you who said I'm funny. If there's something you think we could be doing better, though, just email me about it. I always respect a good old-fashioned airing of grievances. I'm Hannah Jewell. I'll be off tomorrow, but the rest of the team will meet you back here then.